So first of all, I just want to say thank you for coming. Obviously it's quite a unique meeting, and it's certainly our first one, so I think it's obviously quite daunting being up here, but hopefully you'll enjoy it. So we just quickly wanted to just introduce ourselves, how we all got started with doing this. So my name is Shakira. I qualified in 2009 as a veterinary nurse. I worked in charity for the last 6 years, and now I'm working here as a clinic nurse and do lots of welfare type stuff still. This is Gemma. We work together at the Blue Cross, and we've both been affected by breed-specific legislation. I'll let you quickly say your piece.
So just a little bit of an introduction. I'm Gemma Pluma. I currently work for the Blue Cross in Victoria. I've been there about 8 years. I've actually been in the veterinary industry for about 15 years, so sort of big experience, wealth of experience there. We see a really high percentage of bull breeds in the work that we do, and we felt that the knowledge and understanding of breed-specific legislation itself was quite limited, and that was quite evident throughout the sector. I feel that we've got a really important job in educating vets, nurses and associated staff within the field, excuse me. What's my train of thought now? And obviously I have experience of the first hand of emotional trauma of putting type dogs or alleged Section 1 dogs to sleep, and obviously the distress to staff and owners is quite heartbreaking. I feel it's quite wrong, and obviously it goes against everything we're trained to and what we believe in. Killing a dog purely for the way it looks, obviously our hands are tied and it's by law, but it's something that we do have to do as part of our job. Thank you.
We recently got Amy on board, who's just at the front here. She works in a charity as well. So between all three of us, I think obviously working in charity, we do unfortunately have to mop up the mess of seeing a lot of these types of dogs, and there's no laws on breeding at the moment massively. So unfortunately we are seeing high numbers of these dogs. Anyway, so why was it founded? So we got wind that the DDA Watch do lots of the protests every year outside Westminster in July. We started getting involved in that and kind of felt that something had to be done, but it's the veterinary profession that seemed quite quiet on that. So last year in July, I tried to round up the troops and try to get people in uniform to come and represent the veterinary profession, because I felt that we were very, very quiet on that. Aims and missions can be found in the booklets that we've got. Obviously, generally, we'd like to see an end to this law. It doesn't really seem very fair or very justified, especially as 90% of these dogs that we do see are well-mannered, healthy dogs that have actually not committed any crime whatsoever. We are members of APGORS, the All-Party Animal Welfare Group, which is a parliamentary group where we discuss animal welfare issues within Parliament. We're very, very proud members of that, and we do attend those regularly as well. So today was obviously our first meeting. We wanted to try and get as many people together, so thank you all for coming. It's actually been really successful, and it's great to have so much attention and support. We've, as far as I'm concerned, been involved in this for a little while now, and with obviously being a big fan of these dogs. And we've not really seen anything like this before, so we just wanted to get everyone together, from owners, people that have been affected by it, veterinary professionals. We've got barristers, animal welfare advocates, etc., etc. So the Dangerous Dogs Act. So prior to this act, there was no actual legislation available to enforcers directly to protect people from injury, whether that's a dog that frightens somebody or a dog that has actually caused any injury. So it's quite important to understand that the intention of Parliament was originally to protect people. This act is used in the most serious instances, and generally it will be used by the police to instigate that. Breed-specific legislation is part of that, and was reduced after multiple attacks, and the government wanted to be seen to be doing something after that to try and make the public safe. And unfortunately certain breeds seem to be picked up regularly, and therefore 4 certain breeds were banned. So breed-specific legislation. So it's part of the Dangerous Dogs Act, and there's 4 particular breeds, which I'm sure I'm not going to go through that with you, which are illegal in the UK. So they seem to be considered as fighting dogs in this country, or often labelled as dangerous dogs. it's quite a negative term towards those dogs because a dog is a dog and a dog can be dangerous. George Eustace, when I wrote to him, he said that he didn't feel that these dogs were very safe to be kept within the home. However, there's plenty of other breeds on the Kennel Club register where these dogs were originally used as fighting dogs. So breed-specific legislation affects all sorts of dogs. It affects stray dogs, it affects owned dogs, and unfortunately the age issue is something that we're also quite interested in. So there's obviously an animal and human welfare impact as well, with the dogs being seized for, sometimes a very, very long time. The handling of these dogs as well can usually be quite brutal, and also the human welfare impact on people like myself that has to assist to euthanize a dog, vets that have to euthanize dogs, staff looking after these dogs, they get to know them very, very well, we really don't feel that we're making much of an impact on that. So public safety concerns, so dog bite instances have increased, as I'm sure you're well aware of that, and why is that? We need to try and get to the bottom of that. So cost implications, your cost implications to the owner, to the taxpayer, and also to charities, and they have to pick up the pieces of all of this. There's plenty of scientific evidence that's proving that this is quite a failed law, and there are certain areas that have repealed breed-specific legislation. So how can we end that? So first I want to talk about the seizure of dogs. So in this picture, it's hopefully quite obvious to you what's going on. So the question is, was this approach necessary? Where are this dog's puppies? Why was she being seized? And the use of catch poles I thought was a little bit excessive. This is obviously my own opinion. I've worked with these dogs for a very, very long time. I fell in love with staffies and bull breeds from the age of about 12, 13 years old. I've been working with them ever since. And I've never once had to use a catch pole. I'm pretty sure most of you guys who work in rescue or with dogs will agree with me. The seizure of these dogs is very stressful. It's stressful for the owners to watch, and it's certainly very stressful for the dogs. And many owners, unfortunately, don't know that they're breaking the law and therefore have their dog seized. The dog could be seized in a public place when you're out walking your dog down the street, or there could be a report and they come around and take your dog from your home with a warrant. Pitbull identification, so obviously quite a worrying subject. So difficulties in identifying dogs and certain breeds, and there's lots and lots of papers available on this at the moment. If you sort of go on Google, you will be able to find peer-reviewed journals on this. Now, for a dog to be defined as a pitbull type, there are supposed to be a certain amount of characteristics for that dog to be deemed a pitbull type. So in the UK we use something called the ADBA show standards, which is the American Dog Breeders Association. Now that show standard was created in 1977, which was for show winning dogs. That was for its purpose. Often this is down to personal opinion, with dog legislation officers having a look at dogs, and obviously training and typing can be very, very subjective. So the dogs that we're seeing, and certainly in these pictures, are crossbreeds. A lot of these dogs are not purebred dogs, which again, not that really makes so much difference, but the term pitbull is used as an umbrella term to describe these types of dogs. So you've got any dog that's a full breed, short-coated, muscly mongrels, and you can see those dogs are all different in some way. So Lennox was a very, very famous case. He went viral. There's lots and lots of support for that dog, including from over even in America. Now that dog was proven to be a Labrador Bulldog cross after DNA. However, DNA in this country is not admissible as evidence in court. So again, we've got that other issue. So from personal experience seeing dogs typed, so from my experience working in rescue, I thought I knew what a pit bull terrier type was, and would see a dog and think, oh, that's definitely type. And then it wouldn't be put to sleep, or I'd see a dog and think, oh, that would definitely pass, and it didn't pass. So, it was completely subjective. We never really knew which dogs were going to pass and which ones weren't. So it kind of taught me that I was actually wrong on what I thought compared to, again, the show standard from 1977. So the welfare concerns of seized dogs. So again, this is quite a big subject. RSPCA, Sam, thank you. We've got some leaflets down there, booklets on the RSPCA done some guidelines on how to care for dogs that have been seized in kennels. I've had quite a few messages from owners, certainly on the Facebook page and by email, of dogs that have been returned quite underweight and with the ribs and things showing. Now, if an owner wanted to pursue that, it seems to be very, very difficult because they wouldn't know where their dog was being kept. So how can they forward that through? As far as I'm aware, there hasn't been any cases of that. I could be wrong, but obviously that's a concern, and people usually have to pay to have their dogs cared for in that way. So compared to human laws, people are allowed home on bail, so they could rob somebody or they could cause a crime and they're allowed to go home on bail, yet these dogs have done nothing, been seized, and then they're kept in solitary confinement. So one of the questions is do dogs return to the normal behaviours that they were, to their behaviours that they were doing pre-seizure? A lot of people do say that their dogs come back with concerning behaviours. It's obviously well known that dogs that spend a long time in solitary confinement can create a lot of social deprivation. This is a welfare issue. So the care of seized dogs, so these are real cases, like I said, of pictures of dogs that have been sent to me, and after many months of confinement within this country. We know that long-term confinement is a welfare issue for dogs. They're insatiable creatures. There are a lot of Staffies and Bullbreeds that tend to cope well. That's something that's very well known within rescue. They're very insatiable. They like to spend time with people. And one thing as well is, again, working in charity and seeing dogs that have come in, I always ask questions. Do you know what kind of dog you've got, etc., etc. And someone will say, "Yeah, I've had my dog seized. He has to wear a muzzle." And they will report that their dog now urinates when the dog's touched by strangers, or the dog lunges at dogs that it never used to before, or they develop some sort of abnormal behaviour for that dog. The other thing that I also wanted to address was muzzle training. A lot of, again, the OSPCA guides obviously would encourage that, but a lot of these dogs don't get any muzzle training when they've been seized. So again, that's something that would help. A lot of owners, then we get these dogs back, don't know how to muzzle train.
Reports were made that he had some serious kennel guarding behaviours. So a lovely educated lady called Karen knew that if she handed him over to a rescue, he'd definitely be typed and put to sleep. She'd heard about me and thankfully made contact, and of course I went to meet him. Originally, I was going to foster him, get him fed up and prepare him for a life of love and affection. Well, I'm afraid I'm a failed foster carer when Boss met Marley. After 20 minutes of leash lunging and constant growling and terrible body language, I really did feel like I'd made a very, very big mistake, promising to foster another male dog of the same age, both untrained. I then remembered that the lady from the kennel had thought Marley was a fighting dog due to his fearful nature and behaviours. In normal circumstances, an unleashed dog would be able to put sufficient distance between himself and a fear source. So I muzzled him, risked it, and led him off. As soon as I led him off the lead, he stood still. Boss's butt shot up like a rocket, both staring at each other in silence, waiting. With his tail in the air, Boss let out a loud roar of a bark, basically a play with me. Marley looked so confused, but within 5 seconds, Marley was copying Boss with his tail high in the air, tongue out and head held high. He was happy. I honestly believe he'd never even played with another dog in his life. He seemed completely lost. Running into Boss like a ball, headbutting and throwing his weight around, he was completely confused, but he definitely was in love. Being a dog walker, rescuer and bull-breed advocate, I knew I had 2 potentially illegal pit bull type dogs. I called DEFRA, I called the dog unit, and I even tried to call the police to get my dogs registered without them being taken away from me. Each person said the same thing: "I'm sorry, your dogs will have to be seized." So I gave up trying. We hid, we walked late at night, we walked through the alleyways, we basically lived in fear. Not easy for a professional dog walker, but in those 6 months we got a lot done. Constant training, Marley was able to walk past dogs in the street and ignore them when before he couldn't see a dog a mile away without leash lunging and snapping. He was able to approach dogs calmly and respectfully, and even made a few little furry friends until the dreaded day came when we were spotted. Walking down the road, I got stopped by the Safer Parks unit. My boys were muzzled and on a lead, walking extremely well. A big truck pulled up in front of me. They jumped out like I just robbed a bank, telling me, "Do you know what breed you've got? Do you know they're illegal?" I explained I was a dog rescuer and a serious bull-breed advocate. I explained I rescued both dogs knowing exactly what breed I had rescued. I explained I'd called numerous people to get them registered, but the only way to do this was for them to be taken off me for an uncertain amount of time, which I wasn't going to have. After taking photos of my boys in the street, they told me that they will contact me if my boys are typed. And if they are, and I don't bring them in voluntarily, I won't get them back once it's gone through the court process. So I waited 48 hours, and after 48 hours I got a phone call. You need to surrender your dogs to Edmonton Police Station within 24 hours, or they will be taken by force from your home. This was my one and only option. The next day I took my boys for the longest off-leash walk. I had a problem saying that when I was practicing it. Longest off-leash walk ever. Fed them a roast dinner each and loved them till they couldn't breathe. And then drove them down to what looked like hell in a cell. Just like the same as you. It was awful. I wish I took a picture of where they keep our dogs while they're waiting to be collected. It was disgusting. A 1 metre by half a metre freezing stone cold floor with a dirty old blanket and no lights to keep them warm. It was awful. I then got asked to lock the cage that Boss was in because he was going mad. He was barking horrifically at me, basically saying, "What the hell are you doing to me?" You know. The lady said, "Can you lock it, please?" And she asked me to lock it because she was scared of dogs in general. Now these are the sort of people that are taking our dogs, the people that are too scared to go near them and let alone understand what sort, understand them. So 2 weeks had gone by after my dogs had been surrendered, and I hadn't heard anything. The amount untold phone calls, just the same. I run 4 or 5 times an hour trying to get hold of people. No one answered emails. No one got back to my emails. As you can imagine, I was going out my mind. No one was returning my calls, and I felt like I'd been tricked into sending my dogs to death row. So when I did finally hear back from them, as you all know, they wouldn't tell me a damn thing. No information on how my babies were settling, no information on where they were, what kind of people were caring for them. They just wanted to tell me that I've got to give them some money to get my dogs back. The next 6 months were without a doubt the worst 6 months of my life. The reason they said it took so long was because the officer who was originally dealing with my case had gone on holiday. Therefore, the paperwork got pushed back until he returned. This is what our dogs are to people, these people, paperwork. Every day I was in floods of tears, I lost a huge amount of weight and resorted to antidepressants just to get me out of bed in the morning. Being without them broke me, and it made me think about all the other families going through the same thing. I've learned that having a registered pit bull owner is so hard, especially to keep them happy when you end up with a frustrated dog which can lead to aggression, which is especially hard when you've got more than one dog in the house. We're locking up these high-energy dogs, stopping them from stretching their legs and feeling the wind in their fur, when 99.9% of them are perfectly good dogs, which haven't been allowed to play with other dogs due to this silly law. We're teaching dogs and people to be fearful of the breed, and people are the ones that need to be educated. So once my boys were finally home, I did start to think, seeing as England is so set on restricting a certain type of breed's natural needs, couldn't we do something where they're all allocated areas in the parks or woodland that are fenced off and made secure? Owners can call up and book in with their dog or their dog index number. They get an hour slot to have a nice, safe, private walk to themselves. Or if I can get all the dogs in my area to come forward with suspicious-looking dogs and have it, rather than have them go to court and getting seized, this would give an opportunity to teach them how to be responsible dog owners at the same time as keeping the local authority happy. The owner could participate in a 6-month training course while their dogs are safe at home. This would increase public safety in the local community. This ban now has been going on for 25 years. The dog bites ratio hasn't changed at all. If anything, there's been more dog bites since the dogs became status dogs because they're more wanted by the wrong kind of people. By the accounting of the first 4 years of the ban, we spent roughly 20 million on keeping innocent dogs locked up. That's taxpayers' money. For what? For unsuitable, poor conditions. It's just a joke. It should only take a week to go to court and have your dogs returned. Typing dogs by visual identification does not ensure that they are safe. The DLOs don't test them with animals or children when they're taken. Taking my dogs away from me didn't benefit my local community or make them safer. I did by being a responsible owner. What would we have to lose by using a comprehensive educational programme in place of breed bans, rather than locking up people's innocent family pets? Judge the breed, not the deed, MBSL.
Thanks, Charlie. I think if there's anything that is troubling you, I think it's now the time is just need to ask. So yeah, Molly.
I've got, I'm a student nurse and I'm obviously very interested in this. But like, are there any kind of like things that I can do like day to day that you recommend to like try and like, because obviously it's changing public perception, I'm trying to get an idea of how to do that like before I actually go about it.
Do you mean on the breed specific side or just dog behaviour in general?
A bit of both, yeah.
Yes. Well, I have actually got a meeting with BVA, in fact, the week after next, but there is a big need for more under the belt, just routine veterinary knowledge about dog behaviour. My view is that behaviour counselling has been looked on as a sort of separate thing. It's very time consuming, you have to write reports and all the rest of it. My view, behaviour should be treated exactly the same way as an itchy skin or diarrhoea. We don't write reports about every case of that, we see. I think that should be by example. I think, even if you don't even mention the word behaviour in let's say, a 10 to 15 minute consultation, or if it's a nurse consultation, that the way you're handling the dog or the way you're communicating with the dog is actually subconsciously educating, because of course you've often got kids in the room. So I think that should be role models in terms of how they actually handle the dog and communicate with the dog. But unfortunately it's still not seen as a veterinary sort of remit. I think there'll be more and more behaviourally orientated and educated vet students, graduates shortly, and certainly from Nottingham, from Sussex. And in fact I'm doing a CPD day at Nottingham Vet School for the students about the veterinary responsibility in this forensic canine behaviour. And of course I'll be talking also about pitbulls. I mean, I think generally and of course this unfortunately has been held against me in court, that the prosecution bring up these letters from over the years from the Royal College saying that vets don't really know how to identify pitbulls. So I'm there as a vet, well you're a vet, aren't you, so you don't really know how to do it. Which is not really the point, because you learn how to do it. So vets I don't think will ever, as in fact Shakira said, be sort of ethically involved in saying, do you think your dog's a pit bull? And I certainly wouldn't do that. I would just treat it. You never see a veterinary record, the records from a veterinary surgery saying pit bull. It'll be a scaffy cross or whooping cross. Because vets generally write down what the owners have told them. So I don't think vets will be involved in actually, make people aware of the law, certainly, but I don't think vets would be saying, I think your dog's a pit bull and you better walk the dog at 2 o'clock in the morning, that sort of thing. But certainly in terms of behaviour and how to actually educate, it needs to be across the board. It's not sort of, this dog is badly behaved, so I'm going to tell the owners what to do. You've got to show by example. And that's the way to equalise communities.
Can I do kennelling for a minute and seizure? Because the owner of the dog, or keeper, lawyers, the courts, don't have access to see the dog in these kennels, and often you don't, because the dogs are taken to some other place. Would it not be helpful if there was some BVA assistance, because I'm sure some of the vets, there are occasions when we know there are veterinary reports which we don't have access to. If there is some movement to have an open justice for what's actually going on in the kennels, and that those vets that are going in are maybe put in fear to speak out about what's actually happening in the kennels on both how the dog's being kept. It's obviously kennelling as well, but we often do not know what's happening. We often do not know how much training or human socialisation the dogs are getting, and we need to get inside there, and the RSPCA, of course, can help on this.
Well, I think there certainly are moves by the RSPCA.
But there needs to be some united front about
absolutely.
Taking these dogs. I mean, we've seen dogs that are kept in isolation, and not surprisingly, they react or may not react. But something has to be done about some kennels are good.
I certainly can't. I mean, I'm sure maybe Roger wants to take as well, but that's certainly something I'm going to be taking up with, BVA and also with the Royal College, because strictly speaking, vets ought to speak to other vets. And I know from my years involved with that you can never find.
Well, I imagine they're on some secret, you know,
Yes,
sign.
I think it's the
will
same
be.
with Michelle's dog.
Yes,
She
they
would have
will
no
be.
idea who spayed that
No,
dog
no,
and how that dog
exactly.
would
Well, exactly.
Let's
But
talk
they're
about
all
that.
And the
Yes.
owners
Be
should have the right
transparent.
to have those veterinary records. I can get my veterinary records on my
Yeah, I completely agree.
But I think
Definitely should.
the vets should be covered by their body.
No, well, exactly. This is something to take up with more college. The other aspect, of course, is that if the kennel staff, this goes back to the question about pets knowing about behaviour, if the kennel staff say, oh, he's a bit dodgy, I won't go in there, the vets will just stand outside the kennel and do a visual exam. They won't even try to get a dog out that could be perfectly handleable once it's outside the kennel. So they're not going in, and this is with the greatest respect to them as well, but they're not going in with the same rigour as they would, hopefully, for a dog that's in their consultant.
Well, we don't know how
They
much
ought to have the
accommodation's going on.
same approach to both.
But they need to have their support, the veterinary professionals,
Yes.
as to what's actually happening in some of the kennels.
If I could make a point, I think John Cooper hit it beautifully earlier by saying this is actually not just an animal welfare issue, which it certainly is, it's also a really big human rights issue. And I think we're not really going to stir the consciences of these MPs from events that happened 25 years ago with Kenneth Bacon, because MPs like to look forward and they like to look forward to their next election. But as a human rights issue, this is just one of the ultimate obscenities, one of the outrages that simply wouldn't be acceptable. I think the prisoners in Guantanamo Bay have more rights than these dogs. And we're constantly misled, confused, lied to by the police over, well, why did that dog lose 5 kilograms in 3 months? Why is it that his tail is broken or his tail is bleeding? Where's the evidence of what treatment this dog has had? And the veterinary records that we might eventually get have been carefully sanitised. And this cannot be acceptable. It wouldn't be acceptable if it was a human being in there. And so we want to have some parity in the treatment of these dogs, which equates them to the rights and welfare of a human being. And I feel very strongly about this, and I think we need, this is just a fantastic audience, I have to say, looking at you. Most of you are young, Jesus, some of you weren't born. And shit, I've been doing this for 25 years. There are people out there that are now retired or dead, Alec Waters or Juliet Grass. They've come and they've gone, and it's so fantastic to have a new generation.
Juliet?
Because Juliet, yeah, no, she's not dead. Trevor, and there's a few others in the audience, that have been a long, long fight, and some of us are getting, well, I'm not all that, but some of us are getting quite weary about it. But it really is something where we want to put this to the top of the political agenda, and I would respectfully say we've had all the abuses to the animals, the abuses to the people are something outrageous that have to activate us, and we've got to come out of this meeting and commit to really
Well, we need
fight us.
documentary points that can be shoved up there.
Yeah, and Kendall's been criticised as being too dog friendly. I certainly have. I've been very constrained while I speak, and I hope there's somebody from the CPS listening to my comments this evening. Dr. Mumford, you said that you don't agree with the current legislation. That means you can't be an unbiased witness. How can you be an expert witness in defence of this? Ignore his evidence. He's plainly contaminated. It's very difficult for us to be occupying these two roles of helping a client who needs our help, or a lawyer who instructs us, and actually saying what we think and what I know
But
Kendall
it
and I
is
think
possible if you do completely separate the issues. I make no bones about the fact that I say, if asked, if I get accused, because I do absolutely regularly, you don't agree with this legislation, do you? Well, that doesn't mean I'm going to come and make up some measurement of the dog any more than I would make up about a tumour or make up about a veterinary condition. So it's two completely separate issues. I don't think the law is achieving what it's set out to do. And that is my view. I make no bones about it. But does that mean I'm not going to give you an even-handed view on exactly every 68 features that I look at in a dog and tell you exactly how I've measured them all? No, of course it doesn't. They're two completely separate.
Yeah. But of course, magistrates are just ordinary people pulled off the street, and they are influenced by accusations made of this sort of, hey, you like dogs, you love dogs, don't you? And so, well, that contaminated evidence. And there is a whole department of the CPS and there are a few policemen who make a living out of rubbishing anyone who dares to be an expert witness. Kendall is the only vet in the country who's got the temerity to put her head over the parapet. Where are all the other vets? My daughter's a vet. I've been trying to get her involved in this, an RVC graduate. They're just invisible, and it's one of the pleasing things about this evening that there are so many of you veterinary nurses, but I wish there were a few more vets. I mean, what a wasted 5-year training in animal welfare that none of you can see the outrage that is going on. Sorry, I'll shut up. Good.
It's a quick question, and it's whether there's also consideration that needs to be taken in terms of the breeding of dogs and the abuses, the puppy farms or whatever, in their breeding, and whether there is a point here that can be made to link into the arguments we can hear all evening and how to challenge that sort of behaviour.
Well, if I could just say that we're a local charity, we work with several councils in London, so East London, North London, just on the outskirts. We get a lot of pit bulls come into the pound, so they've already been abandoned before they even get a chance to have an expert witness fighting their corner. So I'd say out of 10 dogs a week, if there are 2 pit bulls abandoned each week, they've just been abandoned. The owners aren't going to bother trying to fight their corner because they can't sell them on, legally they can't pass that dog on, so they'll just abandon them. They'll get picked up by a dog warden, and then they'll be put to sleep after the 7 days. So there's hundreds of pit bulls, probably less, not hundreds anymore, because there's less pit bulls coming through, because most people don't want to take on a pit bull, because most responsible people won't want to take on a dog that has to be muzzled, insured in public, and take on all the extra things that they have to do. So they'll take on a staffy. Staffy crosses are becoming a lot more popular. People are adopting staffies. But there's hundreds of pit bulls, or a lot of pit bulls being put to sleep. Not many pit bulls probably get to a point that they even get to go to court, because they're just put to sleep. And I think we'll, I'm not saying hopefully, but I think we'll see less pit bulls coming through, because they're not bred on hobby farms, pit bulls, because there's no money in pit bulls. They're bred on estates and sold on Gumtree and like, and if the breeders that are selling them aren't getting any money for them, they're just going to stop breeding them. So the breed will probably die out and be replaced with another type of staffy cross. Yeah, they'll go for another sort of staffy crosses, but there's less. Yeah, they're getting seized. We had a staffy that we took in from a pound, and we took him in, we rehomed him, and he, as I think we were talking about earlier, it was over Christmas time, the dog was going to be put to sleep, it was a staffy cross, we rehomed him, he had a fantastic home for a month. It was Christmas, there was a family, not argument, but playing. The dog bit by mistake, because he thought, as you said, it was an argument. The owner went to hospital, the hospital called the police seized the dog and took it away, because the son was at home, and they would not give us the dog back, or lots of phone calls trying to speak to police, passing the buck along, saying both of you were saying, and they destroyed the dog. And he wasn't a pit bull, he was a staffy cross, but I think there'll be less pit bulls. They'll replace different types of staffy crosses, but there won't be as many pit bulls, pure pit bulls, or what you call.
There's also such working dogs though, isn't there? We just saved a lurcher, Lawrence for the record. And he's probably a pretty bad sight hand, but he couldn't do the job, and was probably abandoned. It's dogs like that as well that are bred for reasons which we may not approve of, that's for another debate, and then they're just discarded. Again, surely that's part and parcel of what we're trying to do here.
And a lot of owners with pit bull types will ring us up and saying, can you take my dog in, or can you take their staffy crossing, because they're all moving tomorrow. Most of these people a lot of them are irresponsible, they're all moving tomorrow, they can't have their dog in, because they're moving tomorrow, and they won't even pay to put their dog to sleep. So it's easier for them just to tie the dog to a park bench and let a dog warden take it away, or someone pick the dog up and take it home with young children possibly, with no assessment of the dog, and there's an accident waiting to happen possibly. So a lot of these people won't even consider taking their dog to a vet if it is dangerous to have it, legally assessed or sadly.
Can I just want one point? The trouble about decreasing the numbers is a pit bull type could be a boxer jumping over your back fence and having a night out with a Labrador. And this is the nonsense of the ESL, is that it's a crossbred, as Kenny was saying before. I remember one police officer tried to say that if it's got a poodle hair, it could still be. And this is the nonsense of when people have this myth about this status so-called dog, it's just a dog. And because those people who are identifying it are looking and maybe not analysing it like Roger will or Candy will, according to this outlet, you're getting more and more ridiculously looking non-pit bull type dogs being classified as pit bulls. And then you ending up, of course, and Battersea and on places, with what's happening. And these crossbreds that could be a cross between two kennel club dogs end up being taken away and seized. And the public think, oh my goodness, this is a dangerous type dog. So that myth has got to be passed around. This is just a dog.
To answer that myth, I have in my hand 50 copies of a paper just published in a veterinary journal in America from someone from the University of Gainesville, and a multidisciplinary team in the USA who went around 6 rescue pounds, like All Dogs Matter, and 6 experts in each of those pounds classifying different breeds of dogs, and specifically bull breed type dogs. And only 30% of the classifications of pit bulls were correct. In other words, 70% of them had no DNA linkage to any pit bull heritage. And the people whom I come across in the realms of the community, the so-called DLOs, they're at the end of their police service career. They've got very little interest in, they know there's a certainty they won't be promoted. So they're no-hopers. They're probably pretty bad dog handlers with their German Shepherds and sniffer dogs in the past. And it's a cushy retirement job. And guess what? When you actually do retire from the police service, they can then become defence experts and peddle their worth. It's a gravy train, and of which I, Kendall, lawyers present, and these police officers, it's a great little earner. And so it's a dirty business, and the point was very well made earlier. You know, it so badly serves the public interest in the public purse.
Yeah, definitely.
I've got a question. I don't know whether anyone will be able to help with it. When my dogs were seized, I was sitting at the police station. They pulled me in the day after I'd taken them in, and they're all very serious. They said to me, "Okay, we've got a problem. We can't give you both your dogs back by law." I said, what do you mean? They said, well, by law, we legally can't hand you back 2 pit bull type dogs. And I said, I don't understand. Like, if you said I can have them back, I can't have them both back. We worked out a way where I had to end up saying that the dog was going to be in someone else's care, or it ended up being a big kerfuffle. And I had to basically say that the lady who had found Marley was going to care for him. So I had to and then they said, yeah, that's fine. They said, yeah, that's fine. They said, but we can't legally give you 2 back.
But we hear that a lot. We hear that a lot.
Legally, they can't care
We hear that said a lot, and we have a lot of people who sign over one of their dogs to get the other one back. But you can understand the pressure on somebody who has no other. We hear that, and we're constantly advising people that that isn't the law.
Can I ask Trevor Cooper, who knows the law inside out, better than anyone in the room? Because so often I hear these DLOs making up the law as they go along, and I don't think there's anything in the act.
In short, no, that's complete and utter nonsense. Yeah, you were misadvised. And if ever you can get into difficulties, never sign disclaimers when the police come to your door. Always take legal advice before you sign anything, right? Because otherwise you may well end up with signing your dog away.
Never signed anything from the start.
Thank you. Thank you. Just another question as well. When you actually have a said dog, you are continuing to have the dog neutered. So by then you having the dog exempt, they then neuter your dog. But you've not actually signed a consent form to say I agree to have an anaesthetic, I agree to have surgery. So then are they actually doing surgical trespass on there?
Well, that's a very good point, because in my experience, dogs have, they've sometimes died, and nobody knows they've died, owners are not informed. things have happened surgically that people are not informed about. And that again goes back to veterinary involvement. Why is the vet saying, okay, the police are there as the carers for the dog, but they don't own the dog. That dog still has an owner. And to me, the vet, whoever is doing that, ought to have obligations to that owner in exactly the same way. And why should it be any different? I mean, one of those dogs I showed up in the ones that was found, that went to Crown Court and was found on appeal not to be tight. That dog had been sent home already tattooed and neutered, and it hadn't even gone to appeal. I think, to be honest, that there is so much of people, because of 4B, and people just say, okay, as you did, I want my dogs back, I want my dog back. And I think the police just get really used, it's not everyone, but they get used to being able to intimidate, and they get used to being able to sort of make it up, and they don't think they're going to get challenged.
Because we trust the police, so we trust them, so we don't want to argue with them.
Really?
And you use that against you, and that's why you can't have none of your dogs back.
Excellent, Dr. Green.
Lots of talk about the DLOs, especially the rescue I covered comes under Met Police, but it's also the local councils. They're getting themselves involved. I get a lot of phone calls from owners saying the housing department's been around, and if they don't get rid of their dog because they think it's a pit bull, it'll be taken away and put to sleep. So the Met Police now are getting involved with local councils, and I can name Waltham Forest Council being one of the most aggressive anti-dog councils in London. They've got a ferocious dog enforcement team. And I'm sure they're in cahoots with the Met Police, because the Met Police are just typing anything and everything. They're typing dogs that are no way, shape or form have got any pit bull in them whatsoever.
We work with Waltham Forest, we take in all their stray dogs, and they do, because of the area they're in Enfield, they cover Enfield and Tottenham. There are a percentage of high, what we call it pit bull, they consider as pit bull types. So they do put them to sleep, we don't even get them. But there's more what they call pit bull types in those areas, because you're sort of Tottenham and Enfield, it's the highest sort of breeding area.
Well,
And Chingford, yeah. But we get dogs from them that I think, gosh, I would have thought that's a pit bull type, and they will give them to us and pass them. So I would say that most of their dogs that come through, he's a DL officer that runs that council, that runs that pound. But they do give us most of the dogs. They will give most of them the benefit.
No, but what I'm talking about is just housing officers or people who work for the council. They're being told by the council to identify dogs that could be typed, and if they do, they are reporting people they should be representing in the community, vulnerable people in council housing or with mental health problems. The council are actually writing to their employees, telling their employees about dogs.
Well, we took 2 dogs off the count of Waltham Forest Council today, actually, that died. The dog wardens didn't want to deal with it because they said they weren't stray dogs, and one was a pit bull type, which we could take quickly across. It was completely blind, so had we not taken it in, I don't know what happened because no one else would have dealt with it. But the staff of Waltham Forest Council actually fought to help get this dog in, bring the dog into a rescue, because no one else would have.
Well, all I can say is I get many phone calls from people in council houses in Waltham Forest who've been threatened by their housing officer that if they don't get rid of the dog within 10 days, they will take the dog away and put it to sleep. That is what they are telling people.
And yet,
and I'm on the other end of the phone with,
And yet Waltham Forest dog enforcement team have been awarded the Platinum Paw and the Gold Star Paw by the RSPCA so many years consecutively, and they continuously put in the paper that in the borough in London it enforces the Dangerous Dogs Act the most, and yet really what they are is exterminators of the breed. And this is what's going on what you said. This is
Well,
it's a whole bias system.
Yeah, there is a point back. On the other hand, they are a dog warden service that will have a 24-hour service that will pick dogs up. There's other boroughs in London that don't have dog wardens, and the dogs are just left and you can't speak to anyone. So it's difficult for
Ira,
everyone.
why do you think the Metropolitan Police handed it to Waltham Forest for the other boroughs? You know why? Because they're all working together and they're operating a genocidal policy. That, you know, when the Dangerous Dogs Act come in 1991, we've had 25 years of this. It's genocidal, most evil, brutal act that's ever been imposed, and people won't believe that. When we get BSL done away with in 50 years' time or 70, you know, like what I mean is, when we get it done away with, hopefully in 5 or 6 years' time, people in 50 years, 70 years' time won't believe that this brutal, evil dog act existed in this. This is something like from the 1600s.
Yeah, it's not. It's got
you know, and
journey,
they're all working, like you say, they're all working together, and it's got to all be exposed through the figures, through the papers, politicians, and we've got to really push it now, like you're saying. That's what this is all about today.
Yeah, can I just say something very quickly? Bear in mind I've been doing these cases for 23 years. So in the early days, of course, it was mandatory destruction for the dog. So it's not great now, but it was worse before, all right? And some of us remember those awful days. I appreciate everything John said earlier about it would be fantastic if BSL could be abolished. And of course, every leading animal welfare organisation continues to say that. We're all singing from the same hymn sheet. Today, I'm here as a representative of Battersea Dogs and Cats Home. There's really 3 major core issues that's wrong with the way you've got breed-specific legislation, putting aside the fact that BSL doesn't work in the first place. One is section 4B, where you cannot get legal aid to defend. And the reason why Kendall indicated that this officer's been doing these cases for 6 years and he's only had 3 defended cases, it is because dog owners haven't got the finances to defend. Police know this. They issue applications, in most cases, to deprive the owner of getting legal aid, which is why most people do end up admitting the cases, because they don't have the financial wherewithal to get an expert in to say to the contrary. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The police say it's a pit bull, the owner can't say it isn't, therefore that's what the courts see. Which is why we're seeing this forever extending definition of what is a pit bull type. The second thing is bail. We have bail for people, we don't have bail for dogs. There is a provision since the exemption from last year where the police have discretion to grant bail, but we know that there are certain police forces that have decided they will never grant bail for suspected Section 1 dogs. So it would be nice if the police refuse, if the court was given the opportunity to decide whether or not a dog was released on bail. Because at least if you can get a dog home pending the conclusion of the case, this will at least allay your welfare fears for how the dog is doing. And if we're concerned about expenditure of money for the public, which is what clearly the police I'm sure would be saying, well that's a way of stopping that expenditure, regardless of the welfare benefits that we would see for the dog. And the third aspect which continues to really worry me as a lawyer is this reversal of the burden of proof. Unusually, although these are criminal cases, or they ought to be criminal cases under Section 1, once the police say your dog is a pit bull type, that is what it is, unless you can prove that it isn't. That's almost unique in law. That has been challenged years ago through the European Court of Human Rights, and they upheld it as being reasonable. Well, if we can't achieve anything, let's at least try to get that burden of proof reversed. So at least we can go into court with a fighting chance in more cases, so that the police have to prove their case. Good.